Welcome to the Best Things Podcast. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to follow us on all the socials at Best Things Pod as well. Now, here are your hosts, Craig and Aaron.
Hello, Internet. Welcome into the Best Things Podcast. My name is Craig. Next to me, maybe future president?
Yes.
Aaron Brooks. Was that ever a dream or aspiration for you? I know you were really into politics. So.
It absolutely was. I thought that would be the path that I went down.
Yeah.
Not sitting here doing this. I had some opportunities to potentially work my way up and maybe end up in D.C. doing some stuff and have a political career.
Yeah.
And then who knew where it was going to go? But yes, as a kid, I thought, yeah, someday I'll be the president.
Yeah. It could still happen.
It could.
I mean,
I don't expect it to, but
you hadn't hit the age, right? You're not 35 yet, are you?
I'm not 35 yet.
So I mean, you've got.
Yeah, I'm not eligible.
You're not even ready to think about it yet.
No, it's just the track that I'm on now is kind of diverged. No, I think I still know enough people that I could get back into the game.
Yeah.
I mean, I still really enjoy politics.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
I admittedly, and this is known information, I'm not much into politics. The closest I get to politics are I will watch on election nights, the big ones. I'll pay attention to that. And
you're not having parties at your house, though.
No, I'm not.
Like we do Super Bowl style parties at our house
Really?
for election nights.
I know a lot of people that do that. My old editor at the newspaper used to have. He would do election day chili.
His chili is supposedly very famous.
Yeah,
I don't know that I've ever eaten any of his chili, but he always sends me a picture of it every election day.
That's his big thing, man. Election day chili. It's a big deal to him. I just never got into politics. I guess for some reason. I don't know why. I mean, I like watching political movies and TV shows. Segue,
right.
But I don't know. I think it's all the. I think it's because movies and TV dramatize it so much. The actual thing is just so incredibly boring, and I just don't think it's that fascinating.
Let's see. Back at the first of the year, we had the new Congress. And we had to elect a new Speaker of the House.
Right.
And it has been since the 1800s that it has gone as many rounds of voting to elect a Speaker of the House as what we saw this year. So for me, it was much-watched television. Yeah. I mean, I had C-SPAN running constantly on my TV, and I'm on Twitter. I'm checking constant updates. You know, what are the Republicans doing? And to me, the drama was really It was a lot like TV drama. I mean, unfolding the way that you would see it in a TV show. So watching the Republicans go back and forth and kind of have this infight about who would become the Speaker of the House. And so the night that it looked like we were probably going to elect a speaker, I mean, I sat up until 2 a.m. watching all of the proceedings, watching, when he was finally elected, and then watch the minority leader give a speech, and then watch Kevin McCarthy come in and give his speech. And, I sat up just watching the whole thing, and then I watched all of the proceedings happen after that as they swear in the rest of the Congress. I mean, to me, it's just fascinating.
Yeah.
I love it.
I like it from a distance. I think it's fascinating from a distance. I will say this, and we're not going to get into politics stuff. That's not our vibe here. But obviously we're talking about, the title of this, fictional presidents and stuff. But would you agree or disagree? Because for me, my favorite era of any kind of politics, my favorite seasons when it came to presidents and stuff like that, seems to be George W. Bush through the end of Obama. Those two presidents.
So two presidents.
Two presidents.
Two presidents was your favorite era.
But also the elections in between. Like, I remember McCain being part of all those different things. That seems to be, for me, that was the most interesting Maybe I'd be maybe I'm a weirdo or something.
There's no. I was I don't know, 10-year-old kid in 2000 when the Bush-Gore election happened, and I remember watching on TV, being glued to it. We had a major ice storm happen here in Arkansas that took our power out for several days, and we had a battery operated radio. So I remember while the power was out at the house that we're sitting there listening to the radio to find out, as this election has gone to the Supreme Court, who's going to become the president of the United States. Hanging chads. Who had ever heard of those? It was fascinating. I mean, the 2000 election was really good.
It was, I wasn't really old enough to comprehend what was going on with Clinton stuff. I mean, in hindsight, as you know, now I understand a little bit more. My dad knew Clinton, so I had a connection there. He got to meet George W. Bush, so I had that connection there. But I think it started out with all that drama and intrigue, and then you had 9/11 happen, and that carried through George W.'s administration the rest of the way. And then Obama, is something that's never been done before, so it's interesting. And then since then, there's been some drama and must see TV for a lot of people.
But there has been a lot of drama,
more drama than I'm willing to invest in.
For me, as just a lover of history,
right,
and studying things, either the founding of the country and the first 3 or 4 presidents, reading that, or World War II.
Right.
I like to read in that era. Those are probably my 2 favorite.
Yeah.
And neither of those encompass my favorite president.
Yeah, no.
Who would have been in...
let's talk about favorite president. We're going to get into the fun side in just a minute, but this is interesting to us.
My favorite president is Calvin Coolidge.
I think you would be in a minority of people.
No, I recognize I am in the minority of people when it comes to that. More than likely, I think a lot of people don't know a lot about Calvin Coolidge. A lot of people know his nickname is Silent Cal. He didn't talk a whole lot, but he has an incredible autobiography, and then just a fascinating biography that was written just a handful of years ago called Coolidge.
Yeah,
that's really good. But Calvin Coolidge, and one of the biggest reasons I like him is because he, in his administration, was the last time that the actual size of our federal government shrunk. I mean, he went in with the idea of we need to shrink the size of government, not increase it. And it's just fascinating reading his viewpoint on government and it being limited and smaller and staying out of the lives of everyday Americans.
Interesting.
And so, that's right down my alley.
Yeah.
But hey, you didn't think I was going there.
I didn't think you were going there. I didn't know where you were going to go, right, but I just didn't expect Calvin Coolidge to be at the top of your list. That's not one. If you were to give the top 5 just presidents, that's not one that you would think would be in the top 5 discussion at all.
Yep.
We're not talking real presidents today. We're going to talk fictional presidents. I'm sure we'll scatter in some other presidential facts throughout the day, but this was my pick, and I just got sitting around this week thinking, okay, you know what? President's Day is coming up, and what there are some great TV and movie presidents out there. Very entertaining, and so that's the vibe today.
So before it was President's Day,
yes,
we actually observed a specific president.
Well, 2, right? Sandwiched in this date's between.
It's actually because of one.
Oh, really?
We observed one president's birthday.
Okay.
Do you know which president's birthday we observed?
Based on what's on your screen, I'm going to say George Washington.
George Washington. Do you know his birth date?
Is it not February 20th?
It is not February 20th.
Is it the 21st?
It's not the 21st.
Okay, I was really hoping it'd be the 21st.
It's the 22nd, okay. The day after yours.
Yeah.
But it began as an observance of him.
Yeah.
And then after Lincoln, we lumped in both of them. And it was
When did that happen? Do you know when that we just melded them together?
Yeah, I've got that further down.
Okay.
What I wanted to get to, though, is that it wasn't until the late 1870s that this became a federal holiday when a senator by the name of Stephen Wallace Dorsey from Arkansas
really
was the one who proposed the measure, and in 1879, President
Wow.
Rutherford B. Hayes signed it into law. So there's kind of our connection as Arkansans
Interesting.
to this, is that, our senator from the 1870s,
Well, let's go.
proposed this, that we celebrate Washington's birthday, and they eventually said, we want to take this holiday, move it to a Monday, so more people can have a 3-day weekend.
Right.
And the Uniform Monday Holiday Act combined the celebration of Washington's birthday and Lincoln's birthday, because his is February 12th. It was a state holiday in places like Illinois and some others.
Of course, yeah.
So they joined these two statesmen, kind of recognizing George Washington for his role, and obviously Lincoln. Many people would consider the two of them to potentially be the greatest presidents that we've had, and rightfully so. That's how we...
Did you say the date that, or do we know when they actually made that decision to combine them?
It was...
Because I feel like I remember as earlier on, like I remember seeing on calendars George Washington's birthday, Lincoln's birthday.
You do, but for some reason, when I'm looking at this, it says that the legislation took effect in 1971 from an executive order from President Nixon, and they shifted the date from being February 22nd, which was Washington's birthday, to being the third Monday of February.
Right.
But it still feels like you see on certain calendars.
I just looked on my calendar, didn't see it, but I remember
Washington's birthday being there.
That's weird.
Yep.
Because I used to say all the time, as growing up, like my birthday is a national holiday because it would usually fall on President's Day at some point. Well, let's go from real presidents to the fictional ones. Let's get into it.
Before we can figure out the best thing, we have to talk about all the things. It's time for The Thing About the Things.
Fictional presidents. There's a lot of movies and TV that have presidents involved, and for obvious reasons. If it's not a documentary or based on real events, they don't want to use a real president or a sitting president or anything like that. So they will substitute in a fake president, even if it's just for a scene or for backstory. Some of these movies focus in on that character, but the cinema landscape is full of a lot of good ones. Let's just go down the list, go down our respective lists here, and see how many of these cross over and combine. Do you want to start first? Or do you want me to go?
You go ahead.
Okay. Right off the bat, I'm going to talk about a 2-time president, although I'm having trouble remembering what the second one he was in is called, the movie. But Morgan Freeman, most notably known as Tom Beck in Deep Impact in 1998.
He was also the president in Olympus Has Fallen.
Yes, that's the other one.
He was, I believe, Speaker of the House, and President and Vice President die, and he ends up as president.
Right. So, yes, Morgan Freeman, Tom Beck, Deep Impact. Deep Impact, this was your 90s disaster movie. There was a string of these kinds of movies that when I want to say, I don't know if there was a president in like Volcano or Dante's Peak,
right?
Or any of those kinds of movies, Armageddon. I'm sure there's probably reference to some, but I don't know that you ever really. I'm trying to remember.
It's interesting that you mention disaster movie, because it has just been in the last couple of days that apparently I'm wearing Erica down with disaster movies.
Really?
It's one of my favorite genres of film.
Love them, man.
I love a disaster. And I told her, I was like, sometimes they can be really cheesy.
Yeah.
But I am still here for the cheesy disaster movies. I just watched one that I had never heard of called Geostorm.
Yeah.
It's got Gerard Butler.
We just watched that last year sometime.
Somebody else. I had never heard of it and just saw it pop. I was like, oh, I got to watch this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's not necessarily a great movie, but it's a good movie.
Yeah.
It's an entertaining movie.
Impending doom in a movie, especially, when it relates to the end of mankind, humanity. I'm just kind of interested in it.
Yeah.
Or if it's multiple tornadoes. I forget which movie it was.
Twister?
Twister, and then there was another one that I watched a few months ago that had like one town was hit by like 20 tornadoes at one time. It was super cheesy. I was like, oh man, this is awesome.
Are you referencing Sharknado?
It was not Sharknado. I've never watched Sharknado. That one is a bit beyond what I'm willing to watch.
They made like 6 of them.
Yes.
I don't know how they kept making those, but I watched the first one.
But you feel like the ones where the president has some sort of role in it.
Right.
How do you handle the impending end of the world?
Yeah. And you've got Morgan Freeman in this movie who is when you think of, in your mind, when you picture like who you would want a president, like he's one of the people that I picture would be a fantastic president in real life, because he has a calming, level-headed voice. You don't see him going high and low. He does a great job in that film as well.
I want to point out, though, something that I have found interesting about this movie, and one of the articles I was reading actually mentioned this, is how this kind of low-level TV reporter somehow gets the better of the president and the entire administration to break this story.
Yeah.
And I don't know, that always kind of bothered me. Like, that's just not going to happen.
Right. No.
That's not going to happen in this movie. Although he didn't really have much of a plan to save the world in this movie.
No.
When you think about it, he was not a very good president at this point. I mean, we talk about how you want, him to be president potentially, but he was, he didn't have a plan.
No. But is that on him or is that on the people who surround? Because really, I mean, if you think about it, the president, yes, has power, but it's a lot of the people. He puts a lot of people in charge of coming up with that stuff. He can't carry the weight of the entire world on his shoulders.
No, you're exactly right. And that's one of the interesting things in real life, reading about transitions from one administration to the next, just how difficult it is for people who have never held this office to walk in and suddenly you've got 20, 30, 40, 200 people. They're now the ones running the entire country, and they've never been in any of these offices trying to put a government together.
And you have a transition of 3 months? Less than that, I guess, really.
Because you win the election the first Tuesday in November, and you take office at the end of January.
Yeah, so you're talking 2 months, really.
Which it used to, they would take office in March.
Oh, really?
And there have been some people that have suggested that we go back to inaugurating the president in March for the exact reason of it takes a while to to build this. And if you want to build the best cabinet you can build, don't give somebody 45 days.
You can't fling it together.
We're kind of like running the country with, like chewing gum. We're just like, we're MacGyvering this situation.
And just about the time that sitting president starts getting what they want to start happening, it's time for re-election.
It's time to run for re-election. Yeah.
And so they'll either win it, and okay, great. That second term tends to be the one you see more things happen. But if you lose it, then it just starts, nothing.
The whole process.
Accomplished.
Yeah. And I've talked with some lower level elected officials that have talked about that, especially some of the ones who have had 2-year terms. They're like, by the time you enter office and you start to get a feel for what you're doing, you got to turn around and start running for re-election again. It's hard to do anything.
It is.
I
don't know that. I wouldn't want to do it. I just wouldn't. I don't think I'd want any say in any of that. I'm happy. I'm happy being a pawn. Who do you got?
I wanted to talk about a TV president by the name of David Palmer.
Alrighty.
You remember David Palmer from 24?
Okay, excuse me. I have never seen 24. I know.
Wait, what?
This sounds like the kind of show I would love.
Hang on. How have you not seen 24?
This was before the streaming world, right?
But it was like one of the biggest shows on TV.
I know, but I don't know. When did it come on? Do you know? Do you remember?
Man, this would have been mid-2000s.
I mean, I see the years. Like, what day of the week did it come on?
Oh, I don't remember.
Because remember back in those days, like that.
Yeah, it mattered.
That mattered.
It mattered which day of the week.
And so I feel like I had something else going on, or there was some reason I never got into it. And by the time I could, it was just too late.
And you have not streamed it though?
I haven't. No, it's whenever I had a DVR, remember those things? I DVR'd a bunch of reruns, but then never got around to it. This is one that needs to be on my list because I hear it's incredible. Won a bunch of awards. It's fantastic. But I do love Dennis Haysbert.
He's the Allstate guy, right?
Yeah, he's great. I like him in everything I've seen him in. So I can imagine he'd make a really good president.
This little snippet says he was confident. He was a confident, commanding U.S. president, but one who had to watch his back within his own administration and family.
There were a couple different presidents on that show, weren't there? Or was he it the entire time? Or maybe because they did some spinoffs, didn't they?
Yes, there was
maybe that's what
there was another 24 that had a female president. I'm trying to remember. It's been a long time since I've watched the series.
Yeah.
Luckily, you've got some hopefully downtime coming up soon where you're going to be around the house for a while. Right. I would tell you that you need to put 24 on your list.
Yeah. I do want to do that. That's a show I've always enjoyed, or not enjoyed because I haven't seen it. I've wanted to enjoy. It seems like something I would enjoy rather. You referenced a series of movies that I want to talk about. This is high on my list as far as a great fictional president. Aaron Eckhart as Benjamin Asher in Olympus Has Fallen and London Has Fallen.
Okay.
He was a great president. He carried himself very well. He had just kind of like what's the word I'm looking for? He was caring, but he was also very decisive, action-packed. You know, that movie, those movies in general are really good. Gerard Butler. I like, and I'm going to reference another movie in just a second because they came out almost at the same time. Jamie Foxx during White House Down.
Yeah, so there was a little string there where we had like the government's falling apart.
Yeah, exactly.
I did not like Jamie Foxx as president. I have trouble seeing him as president. That to me, that does not fit Jamie Foxx's role.
No, White House Down far and away worse than Olympus Has Fallen.
Yes,
they came out within months of each other.
It was like the off-brand.
Exactly.
Olympus Has Fallen.
Yes, Olympus Has Fallen was done so well that White House Down just felt like a knockoff.
Was White House Down the one that had Channing Tatum in it as well?
Yeah.
It was. At first, when I first heard it, I thought it was going to be like a spoof, like a parody.
Right.
Like Channing Tatum and Jamie Foxx. But no, it's a serious movie.
Jamie Foxx has done some good, serious movies, but when you put those two together, and even some of the clips I remember seeing in the trailer, and the movie itself is a lot more lighthearted. They make stupid jokes in it. Like there's one reference that Jamie Foxx, as the president, has to go get his Air Jordans.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that just doesn't make any sense. Like, so I would put him probably in the worst category. I don't know that we'll do a worst category, but Aaron Eckhart, I just love him in general. A lot of his, he was a special place in my heart. He was Two-Face in The Dark Knight, but that whole movie was really good. All three of those are really good as well.
The next guy that I want to mention is from a TV show called Madam Secretary that was on from 2014 to 2019.
Heard about it, never watched it.
It's probably a little too, well, I don't know, because there's some other political shows that you like. You might like Madam Secretary. But President Conrad Dalton, played by Keith Carradine? Not sure how you pronounce his last name. I've seen him in several different movies over the years and TV shows. But when I think of a president, the look and the sound, just his cadence, the way that he talked, the way that he conducted himself, this guy fit the mold of what you would think a real life American president would be.
Yeah.
And he was the president for all but one season of it, when the star of the show, as Madam Secretary, the Secretary of the United States, Tia Leone, she ends up taking over as president.
Oh, really?
In the final season of Madam Secretary. And I enjoyed watching her as well. But just the entire show as a whole, watching the inner workings, especially from a State Department level, I thought was really good. But as a TV president, Conrad Dalton, every time I saw it, you could almost lose yourself in watching him thinking, oh, this guy's he's really a politician.
Yeah.
He was that good.
Let me ask you a question. When it comes to these TV presidents that we look at and go, they're really good, I could see them doing it. Do you think how do you think that reflects on our actual political landscape? Like, does it put too much unrealistic expectations on the actual administrations that we elect? Like, there's one obviously we're going to mention later that will be a number one seed from one of us that we look at. And we can talk about it in just a minute. But like a lot of these that we've talked about so far, we look at them like strong. A lot of them are younger than any president that we've had in a long time, maybe except for Obama. Like, I guess Clinton was pretty young though too.
Yeah.
So I mean, but most of them, most presidents, you think of older. So I mean, and they're virile, they're actiony, they speak so well. I mean, does that put unrealistic expectations on the actual presidents that we elect?
I think that it could have some impact with the electorate, that in our minds, this is what a president is. And sometimes they don't turn out to be that way.
Yeah.
And that can go for either side. It's interesting. I mean, because you mentioned the kind of the youth that we might see in some of these guys that are portrayed, and our current president and our last president have been a couple of our older presidents that we've had. I was just reading this statistic the other day that Bill Clinton hasn't been president since the end of...
Since 2000.
Yeah, since January 20th of 2000. That's 23 years ago. He is still younger than our current president. God. He was elected president in 1992.
Oh, my goodness.
I mean, that just kind of...
Yeah, that'll blow your mind.
Blows your mind.
Wow.
And it's interesting to kind of step out of the TV and movie role and bring it back to a real life perspective. Sometimes I look at it and I think there's a lot of people in Washington that have been around for decades and decades and decades. I mean, You've got people who were alive in World War II that are running the show, and it's like, why aren't there newer faces? How do these people stay there forever and ever and ever?
Yeah.
Sometimes I wonder when they go to talking about big tech and they start talking about tech. I mean, half of them probably couldn't operate their smartphone without help.
Absolutely.
And they're the ones making the rules and regulations for how technology is used, you know, and it's, I don't know.
I would 100% agree with that. You wonder if 35 being the minimum age, I get why that's there. I absolutely do, because I'm 37 tomorrow, and I still feel like a kid. I don't know that I've grown up yet, so I get why that's a minimum. But should there be a cap on the other end of that? Should there be a maximum age that you're elected? I mean, the same thing with like Supreme Court. That's a lifetime.
It's a lifetime appointment,
and so you're like, okay, we've got to. I don't know. Maybe that's again unrealistic expectations, I guess we have on things. But let me go. Let's stay in TV for just a minute, and I want to talk about one show that I really loved. Its first season was really good. And then it I thought it was going to be the next West Wing.
Right.
And that is Designated Survivor.
Yes.
Kiefer Sutherland as president, or not president at the beginning of the show, Tom Kirkman. Spoiler alert if you haven't watched it or heard about it, but is it a clause or a law?
Yeah, so it's the order of succession.
Yeah. Which requires any time during the State of the Union primarily, because that is when you have the entire line.
Cabinet
everybody is together. So if something happens, there needs to be somebody to run the country. So they usually put some Secretary of Agriculture or Urban Development, somebody way down on the list there. Because typically, president, vice president aren't always going to travel together. And if they do, your other people are still going to be in Washington. They're not all going to be together. So the odds of something catastrophic happening are very low, except for that one day. And so the show is about that premise, that worst case scenario happening. State of the Union is happening, and is it like terrorists or something? Just
Yes.
They just
I'm trying to remember. It's been a long time since I
blow
watched that first
up
season.
the Capitol building, and so the entire cabinet, the president, everybody's gone, which makes Robert Kirkman, he created The Walking Dead, Tom Kirkman, Secretary of Agriculture or something, is now president.
And
I mean, it starts off, no pun intended, with a bang. Like, I mean, that first episode is like, here we go.
yeah, it was set up really nicely. And then, I don't know, it went from being network TV to streaming. There was some sort of change
It moved to
happened.
Netflix after like 2 seasons.
It got canceled.
Yeah.
Right. It lost whatever it had, and I never went back and was able to get into it again.
That first season, at least that first half of that first, it was so good. I mean, it set itself up really well. The pacing was good. I think they just jumped the shark a little bit on some of the stuff. I think they leaned into, there were shows like Scandal and How to Get Away with Murder and all those kind of drama shows, and I think they leaned a little too much into that instead of sticking with what got them some good success with the political drama side of things, instead of going off the rails on relationships and all that kind of stuff.
And it's interesting, Kiefer Sutherland is in this because he is also the main star, right, of 24.
That's true.
He's Jack Bauer.
That's true. Full circle.
Yep.
Who else you got?
Well, you just mentioned the show I want to talk about, and that is Scandal.
Okay.
One of Shonda Rhimes's political thrillers. She had done some really good TV, and in this series, you have Tony Goldwyn playing the president, Fitz, as you knew him in the series, but Fitzgerald Thomas Grant III. Now, doesn't that just strike you as a presidential name?
It does. That's a very
Fitzgerald
presidential
Thomas
name.
Grant III.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is... He looks presidential. He somewhat acts presidential.
Yeah.
But then, I don't know. The show itself, Scandal, there's just all of these things going on behind the scenes.
What?
That it gets very... At first, there's some good storyline to this. Like, he was put into office. He thought he was legitimately elected president, but there's people in the background that are... bad faith actors that are pulling strings and, put him into office. And then he finds out about it. And so it's interesting watching all this. But somewhere 3 or 4 seasons into the show, it becomes much more of a soap opera.
Really?
Than it does this political drama or / thriller.
Yeah.
And it kind of went off the rails there, I felt like. He was a good president until him and his wife end up divorced. And then... he's having an affair with multiple women and sleeping around, and then she runs for president against him. It's just, there's a lot of weird things going on. But as a president himself, he was pretty good. Yeah. I enjoyed watching him.
When was the show out?
Again, probably 2015, somewhere in that range.
One thing I think I've noticed more of, and maybe this is just me as I get older, I get more crotchety, but I wonder if, a lot of these shows that we're talking about, they kind of go off the rails a little bit and they lean into a certain demographic, which I guess that's been around for a long time, but I wonder if it's not the result of metrics, like you can now see specifically due to streaming and downloads and stuff like that, exactly who your audience is that's watching it. And so you wonder if there's certain demographics of people that are watching it. And so they just lean heavily into that and it isolates another demographic. Whereas, older shows, it felt like they had a vision and they stuck with it.
Right.
You of course you had some that would deviate, but it seemed like all the good ones stuck with their storyline and just followed through with it. And you just wonder if that's part of it. We can stick around TV for just a second. I want to give just a couple of very or one quick honorable mention as we're talking about. You talked about a wife who ran against her husband. We got to talk about House of Cards for just a second.
Yes.
I want to make sure we mention that. I have not seen it yet, so I can't talk too much about it, but I think you can, because isn't that a plot point when Kevin Spacey can no longer assume the duties of president?
So if you wanted to have a worst, and I'm not even talking about Kevin Spacey's personal life. I'm just talking about as their characters.
Right.
Frank Underwood that he plays is one of the, and his wife Claire, portrayed by Robin.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
They are really bad people. They're really, really bad people, and they could easily be named the worst political couple, TV political couple. I think, it would be easy. But Frank Underwood is this congressman who really wants to be president and does some really, really shady stuff to get to be president. And then his wife ends up wanting to have a lot of power as well. And then, of course, due to Kevin Spacey's personal life, they ended up having to write him out of the show. And so Claire Underwood ends up becoming president. So, again, just like in Scandal, where you have Fitzgerald Grant, you ended up having Melly Grant as president. Here, it was kind of like this was the streaming version of that. Netflix could do more than what they could on ABC.
Right.
But yes, he
in its prime when it first came, like this was like the first big streaming show of Netflix's, wasn't it?
Boy, it feels like it. I'm trying. 2013. This really made their streaming service something that people needed to go get.
Right.
If you didn't already have Netflix, it was like House of Cards is a must watch show. And those first 2 to 3 seasons,
what'd you give it?
Probably somewhere between an 8 and a 10, depending on the season. I mean, it was good.
I need to watch it then. Well, going from maybe the worst, we got to talk about the best then. I know something that a show we both love, arguably probably my favorite. We're talking The West Wing.
Yep.
Martin Sheen as Josiah Jed Bartlett from The West Wing, 1999 to 2006. It's just a fantastic. I mean, just Aaron Sorkin, the man's just like a genius. We need to do a whole filmmaker director episode at some point, because him and Christopher Nolan, man, they are 1A and 1B for me in a lot of ways. But Martin Sheen, which originally was not supposed to really be involved in the show.
Yeah.
He was supposed to be just kind of a one-off or just a guest appearance character. It was supposed to focus on the rest of the White House staff. But I think he did such a good job.
Stole the show.
He really did, that they kept him around. And really, the entire show just follows his presidency. Because, I mean, it wraps up his last year in office.
Yeah. You had 2 terms as president.
Right. And so you pick up with him probably, I would say, less than a year into his first term, or for his first year.
Very, very early on in the presidency.
Which, I think about it now, the word POTUS just seems so commonplace to us.
Like we use it all the time.
Yeah, it's on Twitter. It's the president's handle on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
But, that first episode of the show, when they say some guy named POTUS, they act like they've never heard that before. And I'm just putting myself back in 1999. Was that not common knowledge? Martin Sheen just steals the show. Incredible president, great leader. Again, he is one of those people that I think of when I think of unrealistic expectations for an actual president.
Yeah. I mean, and it helps when you have a great set of writers.
That's true. Yes.
that are writing this. I mean, if you could write how things go, I'm sure every president's administration would like to have, instead of just speech writers, if they could have writers that would write, here's how this term is going to play out. I'm sure they would love to be in charge of being able to make that happen the way that they do on the West Wing. But I don't know. It's just such a great show. And it felt like it was a show, no matter which political side of the aisle you're on.
Right.
It was a show that you could still kind of enjoy, whether or not you agreed with everything politically about it, because it wasn't necessarily motivated at trying to change your political beliefs about something, which I think is what a good show does.
I agree. most of these shows are going to lean, or they're going to highlight probably a Democratic perspective, just because that's Hollywood.
A little left,
but and so this was a Democratic president, so they would. I use very loose quotes, vilify the Republican Party, because I mean that's what you would do. And I've heard so many people say that show is probably the most accurate depiction of what the White House looks like.
I'm sure that it's probably pretty close. Yeah. I mean, just reading other books by people who have worked in White House administrations, it feels like it's a pretty good representation. And
it just shows you how much the staff has to do, not just elected officials, but staff they have, the chief of staffs, the deputies, the communications directors, the speech writers, the secretaries,
there's a lot of grunt work going on that never gets seen.
Yeah. Nobody will ever. There are people that have worked in the White House that no one knows who they are.
Yeah.
No one will ever know their name. But they're doing things that are affecting us in our everyday lives every day.
And that show alone had such a great cast that I loved Martin Sheen, but the guy who played Leo, John McGarry,
no, that was
Leo McGarry.
John. Oh man,
you remember
Spencer?
Spencer, yes, who died while the show was going on late in the show.
Mm-hmm.
But John Spencer, as just being this aide to the president.
Yeah. I guess I never realized how involved the chief of staff was to the presidency.
I mean, a lot of people would tell you that the chief of staff is really the one who runs the country.
Yeah.
I mean, in most administrations, the chief of staff, if you want to talk to the president, you're going through that guy.
You would think the vice president is really the next most powerful official, but really it's not.
And a lot of times, like I just finished reading Mike Pence's new autobiography, and he talked about this and how it was a little different in the Trump administration, and that was when he called the second day in office, he called the White House to talk to President Trump, and the switchboard operator put him through to the chief of staff, and they were both confused, and he said, "I'm trying to talk to the president," and he said, "Well, I don't know how you got to me," and they found out that that's how it generally works, that most presidents ask their chief of staff, if the vice president calls, you talk to him. I don't want to talk to him unless it's necessary.
Yeah.
And so President Trump said, no, we're not going to do that here. If Mike Pence calls, put him directly through to me.
The amount of filters there are before it gets to the man in the chair is ridiculous.
So the chief of staff can really determine what sits on the president's desk and what he's going to look at. So there's a lot of power in that unelected position.
It is so incredible. And so this show does a great job of kind of highlighting that, making it known, letting them know the weight that they have to carry and how much stuff goes into a single day. That this is not a 9 to 5. This is a 5 a.m. to 10:30, 11 p.m.
Midnight.
Yeah. And anything can happen at any point that you get called into.
Yeah.
It's just, I love the detail they go into. You can tell they did their research. You can tell that the actors portraying these characters care a lot about what they're doing as well.
And I would add another great TV president is the guy who followed Jed Bartlett.
Yeah.
Jimmy Smits.
Yeah. Matt Santos.
Yes.
Yeah. I would have loved to see another 8 seasons.
And I've always wondered, is that something they have talked about? Do we bring this back? And will they?
I watch The West Wing every election cycle. So every 2 years, like clockwork for me, I'm rewatching The West Wing, sometimes sooner, but usually every 2 years when election season starts back up, that's my election coverage is rewatching The West Wing. And so inevitably, as I'm watching it, I'll pull up Google or something. I was like, are we getting a reboot? Are we getting a reboot at any point? Joshua Malina, who played Will Bailey in the second half of the series, has said he's open to it. There apparently have been conversations with Aaron Sorkin and Molina and people like that, that there could be a reboot coming or a resurrection coming. I'm telling you, okay, this is the fanboy in me talking right now. 2020, they did the reunion
They
special.
did the reunion. Yep.
They happened to pick a specific episode where in that episode, Jed Bartlett, President Bartlett, looks at Rob Lowe's character,
Yes.
Sam Seaborn, and says, one day you're going to run for president.
I have always wanted to see Sam as president.
I would love a show where he is president. That
Yes.
would be just incredible. Whether, I know not everybody in the rest of the cast can come back, but give him that central figure and build it off that nostalgia. Let him be the lead. Have that similar style in writing using modern day stuff.
Yeah.
Situations.
Uh-huh.
I'd love to see it. It'd be so much fun. And you're telling me that would not be successful? Streaming on HBO Max? Like, come on.
Right.
You kidding me?
Right.
You got any other TV before we switch over to more movies? We've already talked some movies, but we'll go back to movies.
I have exhausted all of my TV.
Okay. One quick honor. I have not seen this show, but it came up on a lot of lists. Julia Louis-Dreyfus on Veep.
Oh, in Veep. That's one I've never seen.
Have not seen it, but apparently she becomes president and did a great job. Okay, movies. You got a movie?
Yes. Harrison Ford
Yeah, he's on my list too.
as President James Marshall in Air Force One.
1997. Again, disaster-ish
Disaster.
movie.
Yes.
Chaos ensuing.
Terrorists have hijacked the most secure plane in the world.
Yeah.
I don't know that this really ever could happen.
No, I don't think it could.
Just based on some of the documentaries I've watched on Air Force One.
You had Gary Oldman as the bad guy on here. And I love the part where Harrison Ford just tells him, get off my plane.
Yes.
Harrison Ford, man, in his prime, Mount Rushmore, man, for me. I loved Harrison Ford. He's good now, but like in his prime, man, 90s.
You know how old he is?
How old?
He's 80.
Are you serious?
I was watching 1923, which he's currently playing in. I was just like, he is looking old. So I looked it up and I was like, oh, he is old.
He is old. That action star life, man, it'll put a toll on you.
I guess so. I didn't realize he was that old. It's going to be sad when we lose
really
Harrison
is.
Ford.
Yeah, it is. He is a national treasure. Was there a president national treasure?
Yes, he's on my list to talk about.
Go ahead and talk about him then.
In the second national treasure movie, I had it pulled up here a second ago so I could tell you his name. But they are searching for this treasure of the city of lost gold.
Yeah.
And of course, they decide in National Treasure Book of Secrets, that's the actual name of the second movie, but they determine that they have to kidnap the president. I'm looking for his name. There he is. Bruce Greenwood.
Okay.
I don't know.
Oh, I recognize his face, though.
So do I. Star Trek. That's it.
Yeah. He was Captain Pike.
Pike. Yep, that's it.
Yeah.
That's how I know him. I enjoyed his presidential role.
Yeah.
So they are at George Washington's home.
Okay.
And they find this secret underground tunnel. Ben Gates, Nicolas Cage's character, on.
I heard Ben Gay. Old man Ben Gay.
The president on his birthday, Ben Gates has schemed to make all of this happen just to get the president here. And he gets him alone and kidnaps him and puts him into this tunnel. And then
I don't remember that. This was in the second one?
yeah,
I don't remember that.
you don't remember this?
No, I don't know if I saw the second one.
You need to watch the second one then. So the president, he's got to be able to get him to give him the codes necessary for the president's secret book. There is a book that all presidents have that has every secret of our nation's history in it. The JFK assassination. Aliens.
Okay.
All of this. He probably knows what's
Who framed
going on.
Roger Rabbit?
Probably so. All of these things that are being shot down over the country right now, it's probably in there what this really is.
What's really in a chicken nugget?
Exactly. So he gets the president alone, and he tells him, he's like, you realize that if you don't find this lost city of gold, that you will be tried for kidnapping the president, all of these different things. He's like, yeah. And so he finally, leads him out of this tunnel and tells him, here's how to get away. And the president's standing on the side of this highway and flags down this trucker, waves him down and gets into the cab of the truck. And, the guy's just like, what? The president of the United States is here. But he's a good president. He doesn't have a huge role in the movie, but I really, really liked him in it.
Yeah. Hey, I'll take it. All right. I got to mention, speaking of movie presidents, there's one we have to refer to.
Perhaps it's fate that today is the 4th of July, and you will once again be fighting for our freedom. Not from tyranny, oppression, or persecution, but from annihilation. We're fighting for our right to live, to exist. And should we win the day, the 4th of July will no longer be known as an American holiday, but as the day when the world declared in one voice, we will not go quietly into the night. We will not vanish without a fight. We're going to live on. We're going to survive. Today, we celebrate our Independence Day.
Woo! Come on!
That just fires you up.
I'm ready to run through a brick wall.
It is what I have listed as the greatest presidential speech in TV and movie.
I'm with you, man.
Bill
Pullman.
Yeah, Thomas J. Whitmore.
Which is another great presidential name.
It sounds very presidential.
Yeah. Whew.
Bill Pullman.
Fired up, man.
What else is he in? Do you know? Does he do anything else?
Yeah, he's been in several different other things. I'll pull it up while you talk about the movie.
Independence Day, which I believe came out in 96, and then they brought the sequel out. What was it, 20 years later? Was it 2016 when it came out?
Yeah, something like that. It was not great.
It was not. He had really aged from the second. But, wow. This is, in many ways, a true picture of what a lot of our presidents have been, and that is going from a war hero to the Oval Office. And in this movie, President Whitmore goes from the Oval Office to the cockpit of a fighter plane to try to save the world from aliens. I mean, he is the ultimate depiction of putting country above self. I mean, he believes that it is his duty, that he is not bigger or better than any other man. It's his responsibility to lead the way, So he was not trying to do anything that he was asking other people to do.
Yeah, he hasn't been in probably a ton of stuff, especially recently. So. He's been in a few movies that you may have known, but he actually has been the president in another thing. I didn't realize this.
What?
Never watched it, but apparently the show called 1600 Penn, it lasted like one season, I guess.
Huh.
1600. That's a pretty good looking cast. Josh Gad is in it.
I vaguely
Jenna
remember
Elfman.
hearing about this.
Yeah, but he was President Dale Gilchrist for 13 episodes.
Huh.
I guess it did not do very well. It got a 5.7 on IMDb and aired on I don't know where, but I want to say NBC.
It looks NBC.
It looks NBC,
doesn't it? Isn't that funny how
so
how
weird
networks have a look, but it looks NBC.
Yeah, it looks NBC-ish. He is just, man. That speech, the movie itself is great. It's a classic. I think he is definitely a contender when it comes to a fictional president.
Yeah,
Are we speech alone?
Are we pairing these up as movie versus TV?
Maybe we should each pick two of our favorites from each.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Who else do we got? Okay, I've got. We got to mention Michael Douglas as President Shepard from The American President.
Another Aaron Sorkin film. He is single in this movie.
Yes.
And it is about the president trying to find love and date as president of the United States.
Can you imagine?
That would be the most difficult thing in the world to
That would be
do.
incredibly difficult to do.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here. Okay, I wanted to mention a couple of portrayals of presidents. I know
Of
we're talking
real-life
about
presidents.
I know we're talking fictional presidents, but I would like to include especially one, probably I'm just going to say it, the greatest representation of a living president or no longer living president, Daniel Day-Lewis as Lincoln.
Yeah.
Hands down has to be the best portrayal. I've got a clip, I think. Hold on. Let me get it. Yeah, I got a clip. Maybe.
The bondman's 250 years of unrequited toil shall be sunk, and until every drop of blood drawn with the lash shall be paid by another drawn with the sword. As was said 3,000 years ago, so still it must be said, the judgments of the Lord are true and righteous altogether.
Man, he just did such a great job.
He's he embodies what we would think
Yeah,
Abraham Lincoln is
Right,
like.
yeah.
Obviously, none of us can look at
Right.
that and be like, "Oh, he nailed it."
Yeah.
But based on everything that I've seen, I think that's pretty spot on.
he nails the look. I mean, just nails it. And he carries himself that way. That again, just another great movie. But Daniel Day-Lewis as Lincoln, he's got to be high up there. You got any others?
How about Josh Brolin
Yeah,
as George W. Bush?
yeah, I had that on here too. Did you watch W?
No, I've seen clips and bits and pieces of it. I've never watched it from
It
beginning
feels
to
like a
end.
parody.
That's how I thought that it was.
Yeah. There's been a lot of people that have
Will Ferrell has
He
done-
might be the most parodied president.
Yeah, probably.
I mean, maybe that's just because that was the era I grew up watching all that kind of stuff. I mean, I know Clinton has a lot of parodies too, but W just seems to have. I think he was just so imitatable.
It's easy to do that.
Yeah.
Texas.
Yeah. And I had heard, I don't know, you're more of a political nerd than I am, so you might be able to live fact check me on this. But I had watched something. I want to say it was a clip from Masterclass because he does a Masterclass, and it was him saying that he intentionally made up words like that. That his expositions and stuff like that, like those dumb sounding made up words, he did it on purpose.
There is no doubt at all that George W. Bush is you don't become president of the United States by being dumb.
Yeah.
So any of that portrayal that you thought, I think in his own way, it could have been somewhat like Donald Trump, who was an entertainer.
Yeah.
And a lot of times the Donald Trump that we saw is maybe not who the real Donald Trump is.
Really?
And so I think that there's no doubt in my mind that George W. Bush would do so. And you could take,
calculated.
He could take some of those things to kind of lower the guards of people.
Yeah.
Or maybe to lower expectations
See,
of
and I
people
could
he's
imagine
dealing
that,
with.
man, after 9/11, because I mean, you saw him, he turned it on during the tragedy time.
George W. Bush standing in New York City
Making that speech.
with the bullhorn is very much like the Thomas Whitmore.
Yeah, exactly.
You want to run through the wall for that guy.
Right.
So
I could totally see it. Whether it's true or not, I don't know, but I could totally see it. Speaking of George W. Bush, the last one I have here to mention was Sam Rockwell played George W. Bush, but the star of that show, the movie Vice, is Christian Bale as Dick Cheney.
yes, I
mean,
forgot about that.
Unbelievable transformation to become him,
Yes,
and just nails it.
I completely forgot it. I've never seen it. I've just seen clips.
The movie itself is not. I don't care for. It's not a great movie personally. It's a weird. It's art housey kind of. It's how it's put together and chopped together is just not my style. But him as Cheney is incredible, incredible. Who else you got? That's my list. I think.
I have completed my list.
Okay. Wow. Look at us completing our lists at the same time. All right. Let's get into. I've got just a littlest bit of feedback to give.
All right.
And
I like
and then we'll bracket this thing out.
We love hearing you talk about us. It's time for the best things about the best things. Want to hear your feedback on the show? Email feedback@bestthingspod.com or tap the link in the episode notes to send a voicemail.
Okie dokie. And really, I'm just doing this feedback section just to remind you guys, hit us up with, give us a review. I don't think we have even asked for a review since we've been back.
Wow, we haven't.
So if you're listening an hour into this thing, then you're already a fan. I don't care if you listen to every episode and you have never left us a review, do it. If you have left a review before, leave another one, because we would love to, number one, hear what you have to say. Number two, it just really helps us out as well. With that being said, one piece of feedback, we did a Valentine's Day episode last week. Well, how'd your Valentine's Day go? How'd your meal go?
It was good.
Was it good?
Yep.
Yeah.
I had a few people reach out and ask and offer suggestions for a potato dish. Apparently, I had said I hadn't fully landed on a potato dish, so I appreciate those of you who reached out and suggested some potato ideas. We went with potatoes au gratin.
Ah, that's a good call.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're doing scallop potatoes this week sometime too.
And it looked like your meal was good as well.
It was very good.
Yep.
Yeah, it was delicious. Braised short ribs with mash and broccoli, carrot.
You ever had mushy peas?
I'm not a fan.
Neither am I.
I've had them. I don't mind green peas and stuff, but mushy peas, not so much.
Like green peas in your tuna casserole?
Not so much. Anyway, this is in reference to our Valentine's Day episode. We were talking about how you might get proposed to on Valentine's. And
we had somebody that got engaged?
No.
Listening to our podcast?
Yes, they were listening to it together and just said, guess what?
This is the moment.
No, over on, was it TikTok? YouTube? I don't remember. I think it's TikTok. Brooke_Ann_0104 said, I'll be so mad if I get proposed to on Valentine's Day or Christmas. This is somebody who does not want to be proposed to on this holiday.
I have heard that sentiment from others.
Yeah.
I know there are other people who share that.
Yeah. Just don't do it if it's like, I know our guy brain, it's the size of a mushy pea. We think it's going to be extra romantic. Just don't. Just do it on some time that's actually going to surprise them.
Yeah.
Not when it's expected of you. All right. Did you have any worsts? We just want to bypass the worst, or did you have some worsts?
No. Not really, other than I didn't think Jamie Foxx's portrayal was that great, and I think Frank Underwood and Claire Underwood, just as far as the actual characters, were really bad people.
Yeah. Okay. I'm here for that as well. All right, let's bracket it out.
If you want to be the best, you have to beat the rest. This is the Best Things Bracket.
Okay. I'm pretty sure I start every bracket by saying okay. I don't know why that just popped in my head, but I just felt like I had to say it, so I don't know. I don't remember who went first last week. Do you?
I do not remember.
I think you did because it was your idea. That sounds right.
That sounds right.
So, all right, we're gonna split the bracket in half, right? We're gonna do TV on one side, movies on the other.
Sounds good until it doesn't.
Okay. So we're gonna do TV first, and I'm gonna take Jed Bartlett. Surprised?
No. In that case, I'll take Whitmore for movies.
Okay, Whitmore for movies. I'll stick with movies. That way you get a high next pick on the TV. Make it as even as we can over here. I'm going to go... I had it on... I forgot I already written. I'm going to go... Daniel Day-Lewis.
Good choice. Good choice.
as Lincoln. Next for TV for you.
TV for me. Unfortunately, I have been deleting. So that way I remember where I've been today. And now I don't know. Let's see if I can undo all of these. Go back and find.
Leave no reference. Save space. That 1 terabyte computer you've got in front of you. Want to get rid of this little bit of text.
I think I want David Palmer from 24.
Okay.
I don't really remember who all we've talked about at this point.
Oh, gosh, that's funny. All right, I'm going to go back to TV. I'm going to take Kiefer Sutherland, President Kirkman from Designated Survivor. Okay, movies for you?
Movies. Give me James Marshall, Harrison Ford, Air Force One.
All right, and this is my last one in movies. I think. Oh, this is tricky, but I'm going to go Aaron Eckhart as President Asher from Olympus Has Fallen.
Oh, wow.
Your last one in the category of television.
I want Conrad. What did I say his name was? From Madam Secretary.
Okay.
I was going to say Conrad Reynolds, but that is a politician from Arkansas. His name was Conrad, though.
Okay, bracket is all set. Let's start it off in TV. We have Jed Bartlett, played by Martin Sheen in The West Wing, versus Conrad from Madam Secretary. 3, 2, 1. Jed Bartlett. All right, we have Whitmore, played by Bill Pullman from Independence Day, versus Aaron Eckhart from Olympus Has Fallen and the like. 3, 2, 1. Whitmore.
Yeah. I was about to say Whitlock.
Next up, we have President Kirkman, played by Kiefer Sutherland from Designated Survivor, versus David Palmer from 24. 3.
Hang on. We have what now?
Kirkman, Kiefer Sutherland.
Oh, okay.
Designated Survivor, David Palmer, 24. 3, 2, 1.
David Palmer.
Okay. And I am giving them that just for longevity, because Designated Survivor went right off the cliff. Harrison Ford from Air Force One versus Daniel Day-Lewis from Lincoln. 3, 2, 1. Daniel Day-Lewis. Okay, Jed Bartlett, David Palmer. 3, 2, 1. Jed Bartlett. Whitmore, Bill Pullman versus Daniel Day-Lewis as Lincoln. 3, 2, 1. Whitmore. Has anybody advanced so far on just one speech? I mean, he's great in the whole movie. Especially, spoiler alert, after the wife dies and he has to comfort his daughter.
Yes.
Which is hitting really different for me right now. He does a great job with that, too. And then gets right back. I think it was right after that he makes the speech. So you talk about extra fuel.
Yeah.
Okay. Tough call. From this corner, movies, we've got Whitmore. This corner, TV, Bartlett. Whitmore v. Bartlett. It's like an election. We got to cast our votes. In 3, 2, 1. Bartlett for president. Congratulations.
Yeah. Woo!
Oh, man. You know what I should have done?
I thought you were going to play Hail to the Chief.
I was just about to say, we should have had Hail to the Chief queued up and ready to go.
Was,
dang it.
A real error.
Dang it, man. I should have absolutely done that. Man. Oh, well. Didn't do it. Okay, let's... That was...
Bum, bum, ba-dum, bum, ba-dum, ba-dum,
let's battle it out.
It may be the best thing today, but is it the best thing of all time? It's time for the best thing battle.
Okay, so we know Josiah Bartlett is the best fictional president, which, you know, a lot of the lists that we looked up, he was not number one.
No. Those people just don't have taste, and they don't know.
I guess so. I saw Michael Douglas's at number one on a lot of those.
Yes.
Which is fine. He's great, too. I just think Bartlett, I think just the show is better than the movie, too.
Yep.
Okay, we've got Bartlett versus a Valentine's Day trip. This is going to be tricky because are you wanting to live in fantasy or are you wanting to live in the real world?
I don't know. For a lot of people, they do live in fantasy. I'm convinced of. Like, hey,
story.
Snap out of it. Wake up. Get back to reality.
That's true. Okay, we got to make the call. Are there any kind of parameters we need to go by? Or are we just going for it?
Just feel it and say it.
Okay. Here we go. Valentine's Day trip versus
whatever tickles you deep in your soul.
Jed Bartlett. I don't like it when you say tickle.
Does Jed Bartlett tickle you deep in your soul?
Okay. That's
the question I'm asking you.
Okay. We're going to move on. All right. Valentine's Day, Jed Bartlett. 3, 2, 1. Valentine's Day trip. Yep. We live in the real world, ladies and gentlemen.
Do you know what the S in Harry S. Truman stands for?
Hold on, are we doing trivia time now?
Yeah. We'll do a little President's Day
okay.
Trivia here.
The S in Harry S. Truman?
Yep.
Samuel.
Nope, it doesn't stand for anything.
Oh, come on.
He just had an S. Which two presidents died on the same exact day?
Oh, I feel like I know this, but I don't. Well, they weren't both active presidents.
Nope, they were not.
Were either of them active?
Not at the time.
Okay. I'm going to guess Harding and Garfield.
It's a good guess, but it's not correct. It was John Adams and Thomas Jefferson. They both died on July 4th, 1826, which was the 50th anniversary of the approval of the Declaration of Independence.
Wow.
Who was the third president that died on July 4th? Different year, but we had three presidents all die on July 4th. You know who that was?
Coolidge.
No. James Monroe. Do you know which president was stuck in a bathtub? Hang on, I just forgot his name. I'm going off the top of my head.
I'm going to say Garfield because that would be funny because of the cat.
No, it was President Taft. William Howard Taft.
Okay.
He was over 350 pounds.
Wow.
And back in the day, he got stuck in a bathtub in the White House.
Interesting.
Which president died soonest after becoming president?
Oh, I know this. It's like 45 days, wasn't it?
It was 32 days.
Oh, wow.
It's very short.
Was it Harrison?
It was William Henry Harrison.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I got one.
He gave such a long inauguration speech in the rain.
He
drove on and on and on.
He got
pneumonia and died from it.
Yeah.
Interestingly, his grandson, Benjamin Harrison, ended up becoming president as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Which president won a Grammy Award?
Jamie Foxx.
He has probably won a Grammy, hasn't he?
I'm gonna guess Ronald Reagan.
No, nope. It was Barack Obama.
Oh, really?
He won it for his voiceover work on his audiobook "Dreams from My Father."
Interesting. I was thinking Reagan because he was in the entertainment business.
He was a movie star. Yep. I enjoy a lot of Ronald Reagan old films. And let's see here. I've got one more. Where did it go? I had a good one.
I got at least one right. So
You did.
I'm riding high.
Oh, there it is. Which president is pretty good at playing the saxophone?
Oh, that's one. William Jefferson Clinton.
You got it. Yeah.
You can't be from Arkansas and not know that.
You can't be from Arkansas and not know that.
Played it on the Tonight Show. Played
Do
it with
you know-
Arsenio Hall.
Do you know what the name of the band he was in was called?
Oh, that I don't know.
Three Blind Mice.
Oh, really?
Three Blind Mice.
Wow. William Clinton, Bill Clinton, whose presidential library sits in Little Rock.
Looks like
Most people think it looks like a trailer.
looks like a trailer. Looks just like. Way to go, Arkansas!
Way to go!
I wish we could have done a little better than that.
You know, I was over there just a couple of weeks ago. Inside is incredible. The outside, I mean, I can see where you think that, you know, when you just drive by, but you're right up there with it. It doesn't really look, you know, it's just a big rectangle. It just happens to be
It's very industrial looking, though, when you're driving
Yeah.
down the freeway and you look over there
Yeah.
at it next to everything else that's around.
And I think it doesn't help. You know, I think that they thought this is going to be really cool. It's going to overhang into the Arkansas River, and that is a cool idea. But I think that little elevation makes it
Yeah.
look like it's sitting on, you know,
the
wheels.
concept, it's just, it didn't pan out in real life. One of my bucket list items is to eventually make it to every presidential library and museum.
How many have you made?
3.
You got a ways to go.
Got a ways to go. Although not every president has a, library.
Oh, really?
So, it's a fairly recent thing. So
Interesting. Okay. Well, happy President's Day. Go get you a mattress.
is there some good deals on those today?
There's always some kind
Is
of
it furniture
President's Day
stuff?
sale. You know, there's
No,
always,
Memorial Day is furniture.
Yeah, there's always something out there. You got anything else?
No. Just go vote today.
That's the Nate Bargatze thing. He's like, I'm an adult now, so every morning I get up, I drink a coffee, I go vote because I do that every day because I'm an adult. I just watched this special, by the way. I watched it again.
Cracks me up. Him answering the door in his suit.
Dude, we need to add that to the list. Comedians.
Oh,
A comedians episode would be great.
We do.
We need to do that.
I wonder if we could get Nate on the podcast.
Oh man, that would be.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
That would be
He was
amazing.
on local radio this week.
That's true. Yeah, and he was not even doing anything around here.
No, he's not. They just had him on.
Just hopped on.
So can we get Nate on?
we can pull some strings. I'm sure.
I mean, we both grew up in Christian families
Yeah.
from the 90s.
Yeah.
We've got a lot in common with Nate, I think,
yeah.
to talk about.
Oh yeah, we do. All right. Well, that'll do it then. For the best things, I'm Craig.
I'm Aaron.
We'll talk at you next time. Goodbye. Go vote.
Thanks for listening to the Best Things Podcast. If you liked today's episode, subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening now. And remember, connect with us on the socials at Best Things Pod, and you may hear your take on an upcoming episode.